Welcome to the Why We Believe show, where members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints share their inspiring stories of faith and conversion to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. On today's episode of the Why We Believe show, I am joined by Brady Murray. Brady is the founder and president of Rod's Heroes, a very special organization that helps special needs kids to get adopted. That's near and dear to my heart, and we're going to talk about that more in the episode. In addition to Rod's Heroes, where he's helped more than 100 kids with Down syndrome get adopted, he's also an Ironman triathlete and a Boston Marathon finisher 3 times. He's also a certified financial planner and a chartered special needs consultant. He's been advising in the financial industry for more than 21 years and has more than 43 financial advisors working for his firm, where he is the managing partner. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brady.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So can you just tell us a little bit more about you and about Rod's Heroes and about your family?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that I am a firm believer that life entrusts us with experiences. Some of those experiences we choose, and some of those experiences choose us. And I would say that my life has been a series of experiences that have chosen me, and what I have chosen to do with those experiences has dictated everything that I have experienced in life. One of those things, as you ask about my family, that is special about my family is that my second child was born and he has Down syndrome. And I didn't find out that Nash had Down syndrome until after he was born, about 10 minutes after he was born. Another unique experience that was entrusted to me as a child is I was actually adopted. And so I have adoption and I have Down syndrome that are 2 experiences that I didn't specifically choose, but they chose me, and I'm super thankful that they did. And so as a result of that, we have been blessed to adopt another child that has Down syndrome, Cooper. He was placed on a street corner in a city of 14 million people in mainland China when he was guesstimated to be 6 months old, and we adopted him when he was 4. And we have a total of 11 children, which is honestly even a little bit weird in Utah. So 7 of which are adopted from 3 different countries and 4 biological kids. So it's a little bit about me.
And some recently.
Some recently, as recent as in they don't speak English yet. And so we got the blessing to travel to Colombia with Rod's Heroes. And it was through that advocacy work that our heart just opened up to the Colombian kids and the idea of being able to welcome a child into our family. And the idea of adopting one led to actually adopting a sibling group of 4. And so ages 17, 15, 12, and 10 is when we adopted them, these 4 beautiful Colombian children, all siblings that have been home now for 5 months. And it's going muy bien, as good as it could be, as is expected.
Well, I am very passionate about adoption as well. I've spent more than 2 decades of my career working in adoption, and I think there's a very special place in heaven, adoptive parents of kids with special needs. Can you tell us how your faith impacted your journey to start Rod's Heroes, and how participating with Rod's Heroes and the adoption of your children has impacted your faith?
Yeah. So this is fun because I get to talk about Rod's Heroes a lot, but rarely do I get to talk about it in a setting where we can speak openly about our faith, and in particular, our faith in our Savior, Jesus Christ. And so my story is I had shared I was adopted. And so I was born Brady Gomez, and my mother and father divorced when I was just a baby. And my mom later remarried a man by the name of Brady Murray when I was 4 years old. And he later adopted me when I was 13. And so I have a wonderful relationship with my biological father and a wonderful relationship with my adoptive father. And so I've been super blessed that way. I have 2 amazing dads. In our family, we were not active in the faith growing up. I was baptized a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when I was 8 years old. And I specifically remember right after that, we had a big family party, and baptism was kind of the last thing on our minds. But, I didn't grow up in the faith, but I had wonderful examples and wonderful friends that did. I was very focused on baseball. And so, in fact, my parents actually got divorced Reed Murray and Elaine got divorced when I was 16. And so there'd been 2 divorces. And like I say, faith really wasn't a big part of our life. I stayed with my adoptive father. My mom and my sisters moved to another state. And the way I coped with that was really focused on baseball. And so I love baseball. I still love baseball. As you can see in my pictures in the background, which is another miracle, is some of those pictures. But I was actually the first person to play college baseball from my little tiny high school in Preston, Idaho. And so I was living the dream. My freshman year was awesome. I was home for the summer. I remember one night I was over at the baseball field. My coach entrusted me with a key to turn on the lights so I could practice at night. And I was over there running in the outfield, actually, early summer, June time frame, and under the beautiful lights in Preston, Idaho, and just running and thinking and so excited for the life that I had with being able to play baseball. And I remember looking over by the dugout and I saw headlights there. A car had pulled up. And so when I got done running, I went over there and I found that my friend, Melissa, who I went to high school with, was there, and she was home for the summer. She was playing college volleyball at Weber State. We hadn't seen each other for a while, and we got chatting, and we just sat in her car for like a couple hours, it seemed like, just talking and catching up. And I remember she asked me in that car at the end of that conversation, she said, "Brady, have you ever thought about going on a mission?" And I just laughed at her and said, "No, I don't know if you know this, but like I'm pretty focused on baseball. And I also didn't know, I don't know if you know this, Melissa," she obviously did, but like I don't go to church." So like the thought of me giving up baseball and going on a mission just isn't in the cards. And she knew me well. She said, "I want to challenge you to pray about going on a mission and ask God if he wants you to go on a mission." She said, "I challenge you to do that." And I'm like, I am one that I accept challenges. I like to do hard things. And I said, "Yeah, sure. I'll pray about it." I remember I went home that night, kind of forgot about it. And I went, got into bed and was laying there. And I thought, I promised Melissa I would pray about this. And I got out of bed and I knelt down and I said a prayer. It was the first prayer that I'd said, and I don't know if ever, really. I don't ever recall a time praying. And I asked God if he wanted me to go on a mission, and I said amen, and didn't feel a thing, went to bed and didn't think another thing about it. The next day, got up, went about my day. I was on my way to work and was driving. I remember specifically the place that I was driving on the highway. And I had the thought come to my mind about that prayer. And the Spirit testified to me that indeed God wanted me to serve a mission. I stopped, I turned around and drove back home. I was emotional, extremely emotional. I had never felt that feeling before, but it was undeniable that I knew that's what God wanted me to do. I went in the house and my dad was there and I was crying. I couldn't even talk. And he's like, "What is wrong?" And all I could get to the words was, "Dad, I want to serve a mission." And even though my dad was not active, he fully supported anything to do with faith and Jesus Christ and the church. And he said, "Okay, well, I'll help you with this." And I said, "Well, what do I do?" He said, "Well, you got to talk to the bishop." And I'm like, "Who's that?" And he said, "We'll make an appointment." And he found out who our good bishop was. And he gave me the number. I called him. And the bishop said, "Sure." And we met, as either that night or the night after. And I put on my best pair of jeans and my polo, and I went in the bishop's office and I said, "Hi, Bishop. My name's Brady Murray, and I want to serve a mission. What do I need to do?" And he's like, "Why don't you start by coming to church Sunday?" And I said, "Absolutely. I'll do it." And I've been 100% active and in the faith ever since. And so the question that spurred this story was in relation to how my faith and how the gospel of Jesus Christ has impacted my life and how my life has impacted, my faith. And I have spent my entire life from that moment that I felt what I felt in that car, trying to pay it forward, because I was not an individual that deserved, in my mind, to experience what I experienced at that level. And I know where that came from. And I am 100% committed until my dying breath to try and pay it forward in and through the service of others and in and through the service of our Savior, Jesus Christ. And so that's probably how we ended up with 11 kids and a foundation and special needs that was entrusted to us. And I can't wait to see what the next 30, 40 years holds for us, because we're all in, 100% all in.
I think so much of it comes down to the faith that you were willing to show to ask that question. You look at Joseph Smith, right? The amazing first vision that he had didn't happen until he asked the question.
That's right.
And so often the miracle doesn't happen until we have the faith to ask the question.
Yeah.
So keep going with that story for me. What you went on a mission.
Yeah.
And tell me about your mission. Tell me about how you gained your testimony of the Savior Jesus Christ and his restored church.
Yeah. So it took me that was June, and I got my mission call in April. And so it was almost a year of like, start by going to church. And super funny story about that process in like going to church and, just like what clothes to wear and how does this work exactly? And just like learning the gospel in real time as I'm preparing to serve a mission. I remember it was like February. So it was right before I was going to submit my papers, and my bishop said, "Hey, Brady, I haven't seen a tithing check from you. Like, how do you feel about tithing?" And I'm like, "Tell me more about this. I'm all like, you tell me what I need to do, Bishop, and I will do it." And so he explained to me the law of the tithe. And I'm like, I'm all in. And I think it was March. And so I calculated what I had earned for the year, and I wrote all of that in a check and gave that to the bishop. Like literally, no matter what, I was willing to do it. And the very next week, Bishop grabbed me and he pulled me aside and he took out of his pocket my check, and it had bounced. I didn't have enough cash in the account. And he said, "Brady, you must manage your finances like me." And he's like, "You take care of this." I'm like, "I'm so embarrassed, but you know what, Bishop, like, I'm going to get this fixed." And so I figured out a way to get fully paid up on my tithing. But that was kind of the experience, as I was just a willing heart, but I didn't know everything. I didn't know hardly anything. I remember when my mission call came, and I'd worked so hard for that, so hard, and had made so many unique sacrifices and just changes that I never thought I would make changes on. One being giving up baseball. I was sleeping in the morning, and in Preston, Idaho, the postmaster would call you when your mission call came. And so like at 6:30 in the morning, the phone rang. I answered. He's like, "Is this Brady?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I've got a mission call for you." And I immediately started crying because I just felt the spirit like the day had come. I went and I got it, and I had my dad there, and I had my best friend there, and I opened it, and I read a call from our prophet to serve in the Chiclayo, Peru mission. And I knew that's where God needed me to serve. I served with everything I had for 2 years in Peru, and I fell in love with the Peruvian people and the Latino culture. That's largely a reason why we wanted to adopt from Colombia, is just we love the Latino culture with all our heart. And it was there that I learned the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I learned it in Spanish. I remember I got home, and there was words that I learned that I didn't know in English that were very church-related terms. And I remember sitting in adobe houses, in one in particular, it was in my first area, that I was teaching the third discussion, and it was about the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I was reading it in Spanish about how the priesthood was restored. And honestly, I think that was the first time I really heard that story. And I just started to cry, and I testified to this young man that we were talking to that I said, "I know this is true." And very much so, I learned and gained a testimony in the Spanish language. And so that was a unique process in how I gained a testimony, because it was definitely not in my native language.
Yeah, I remember coming back from my mission and trying to say some words in English, and my dad telling me, "Those aren't words." Those may be words in Portuguese, but those don't translate to English.
That's right.
Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing. As you came back from your mission, tell me about meeting your wife and the experience of being sealed in a temple and creating a family, an eternal family?
So I left on my mission. I was 21 years old when I finally left on my mission. And so when I got back, I was 23. And I was, as you're probably getting a trend, I get hyper focused on something and committed to something, and I'm going to be all in towards that. And I was genuinely very focused on getting a college education. And I was very focused on hopefully someday getting to find my eternal companion. And I went to my friend's house my first weekend back. He was down at Utah State, and I went to his apartment and I was talking to him. And I said, Cam, I'd really like to start dating, but I'm actually not interested in just dating to date and fun, go on a lot of dates. Like, I really want to date a certain type of girl. And he's like, yeah, okay, Elder Murray, like, I got you. And I said, this is kind of what I was thinking. I go, do you have anybody in mind? And he goes, there's actually a really cool girl in my biology class that her name's Andrea. You would actually, she's awesome. And he starts telling me about her. And I'm like, oh man. Right before that, I had just got assigned to speak with a high council member from the stake. And his name was Mike Allen. And then like 4 days later, I'm talking with Cameron asking, and he's like, you should go on a date with Andrea. And I put two and two together that Andrea must be Mike Allen's daughter. And so I knew Mike from the stake, and like, I'm not going to ask his daughter out on a date. There's no way, right? That would be so weird. And so I told him, he's like, yeah, whatever, you're lost. And so literally the very next day, and I'm like, dang, I'd like to take Andrea, but I'm not going to take her out. The very next day, it was Sunday, and Mike Allen called me. He's like, hey, Brady, how you doing? He goes, I want to invite you over to the house. And I have a family from Peru that doesn't speak very good English. And I was wondering if you could come and teach them about the temple. They're members, but they've never been sealed in the temple. Could you come over, and I'll have my family there, and could you teach them about the temple? And I'm like, absolutely. I immediately hung up the phone. I called Cameron. I'm like, guess what? He goes, what? And I go, I'm getting married. He's like, whatever, Elder Murray. This is amazing. And so a week later, I went over to the Allens. I hoped that Andrea would be there because I knew she was in college, but you know, Logan's not too far away from where she lived, like half an hour. And I was sitting there and I just talking, and Mike's introducing me to his kids, but I didn't see Andrea. And I just, nonchalant said, Mike, are these all of your children? And he goes, oh, I have a son on a mission. And then there's Andrea. She's downstairs. And he said, Amber, go get Andrea. And lo and behold, 2 minutes later, up walks Andrea. And I kid you not, I saw her and I just felt in my heart that that was the girl that I was going to marry. Over the next couple hours, we did the discussion. We had a beautiful dinner. I got to share in English and Spanish about something I'm very passionate about, and that's the temple. And I, through nothing short of a miracle, did marry Andrea. And my mission is the most important thing that has happened to me, only second to me marrying Andrea. And when we knelt in the temple and formed that eternal family unit, I had no way of knowing what the future held for us. But I knew that if we were faithful to those covenants that we were making, that it was going to work out exactly like it was supposed to. And here we are almost 22 years later, and I would say it is nothing what I expected, but it has worked out exactly as it was supposed to.
Thank you so much for sharing. Tell me about one of the hardest things that you and your wife have had to go through and how your faith helped you overcome it.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is a little bit on what I had shared earlier. We had a hard time actually having children. We didn't have our first child for like 4 years. We had multiple miscarriages. It was just kind of hard to get a child here into our family. And so after Brindley was born, we thought, well, if we can have another child, we'd love to have another child. And lo and behold, like a short time thereafter, knew that we were expecting. And we found out that we were having a little boy. So we had our beautiful daughter, and we had our son that was on his way. And I envisioned all of those things that you do as an expectant father. And so, as you know, baseball is a big thing. And I just dreamt about state championship baseball games. And I dreamt about all the amazing things that my son would get to experience and how I'd get to witness and be a part of that. And I thought about the days when my son would be married and would be able to maybe even serve a mission before that and going to college, all those things that you dream about. And so when the doctor 10 minutes after Nash was born told me that Nash has Down syndrome, it was really hard. And that was a very raw and emotional experience for me. And it still is to this day, I would say. But as I processed that, I believed and felt in my heart around this concept of serving the pain that you know best. And I remember how painful that was to process what my life would be like and what my son's life would be like going through this Down syndrome journey. And I felt wholeheartedly in my heart that I was supposed to lean into that this was supposed to happen, or this happened for a reason, and that I was to serve the pain that I knew best. And Andrea completely agreed with that. And so together, through the service in the Down syndrome community, is actually how the creation of Rod's Heroes was created. And that foundation that we've created's purpose is to be able to inspire families to consider answering the call to adopt a child with Down syndrome. And we've been at that now for almost 12 years, and it's been a beautiful experience.
What a difference you've made. 100 kids that you've
Yeah.
been able to help be adopted.
Yeah. We were just doing the math on it today in our meeting, and this is in the last about 24 months, we have 24 families that are in the process of adopting or have adopted, and there's 32 kids that have been adopted as a result of just the last 24 months of this amazing team with Rod's Heroes. And so that's been special in 4 different countries that these kids are being adopted from.
Tell me how that process works. You find great people that maybe can't adopt themselves and they donate money, and then you help contribute that money to help other people that maybe can adopt but don't have the funds
Yeah.
to be able to help make that happen.
Yeah, one of the biggest hurdles with adoption is just simply the cost that is associated with adoption. And we've found that there's many families that are ready and willing to adopt. They just simply don't have the financial means. So through our amazing donors that are willing to donate and allow us to utilize those funds for adoption grants, and then through these amazing families that are ready and willing to answer the call to adopt, to be able to bridge that gap for them to be able to answer that call. So, I mean, it's been a sacred experience to be able to see what happens when a child that is abandoned, that is left on a street corner, and like in Coop's case, our son that we adopted, or that has lived their life in an institute or an orphanage or in foster care, when they're given a shot to have a family, it's really like giving a superhero their cape. And they're able to sing that song they're meant to sing. They're able to rise up and become who they are meant to become. That family unit really unlocks that divine potential that exists within every one of us.
Yeah, having worked in adoption, I know how expensive that is. I believe international adoption is close to $60,000 a year right now. And
Yeah,
if you
every country is a little different. You're $40,000 to $70,000.
yeah, so that means, well, maybe you haven't raised all of the money, but that means $4 to $7 million has been
Yeah.
raised from the families to what you've helped with to help
Yeah.
make that possible. So
Well,
this
and
is
that's our beautiful and amazing donors. That's what makes those miracles possible.
that's a huge lift that you've done
Yeah.
and a huge difference for good. In what ways has your life and the life of your family been improved because of your faith in Jesus Christ and his restored church?
Where do I begin? Because that is intertwined and that is all encompassing, all one. I would say that I can't differentiate and compartmentalize whether that's work or service, church, a mission, fun, baseball. Like, it's all intertwined and connected to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I have learned time and time again that when we allow ourselves to get caught up in a cause bigger than ourselves, we will witness miracles. And I've seen that happen time and time again. Things that you just can't make up. You can't script it. You can't say, if we do X, Y will be the result. Let's go ahead and go do X. You just can't make this stuff up. But the principle holds true that when we allow ourselves to get caught up in a cause bigger than ourselves, we will witness miracles time and time again. And it's so fun to be in that work. And it's all based around faith in a Savior, in an all-knowing, all-encompassing, perfect being that is making this possible.
Is there a specific person who has significantly impacted the growth of your testimony? And how did they do that?
There's a lot of people. The one that I want to share, the one that I would share, very, very special individual. There's so many amazing people. Andrea, my mission president, my fathers, incredible individuals. But one that I want to share about right now is actually my bishop that helped me to go from this self-centered, baseball crazy young man to becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ and assisting me through that process. I remember that he never, ever, ever judged me, and he allowed me to grow at my own pace. I shared with you the tithing example. He's a very patient bishop, but I remember as well other experiences with my amazing Bishop Ward. I remember one in particular that I love to fish as well, and so our church changed to start time until like 1:00 at the first of the year as I'm preparing to go on my mission. And to me, that was perfect. Like, that's plenty of time to be able to go fishing before church. Like, that didn't register that that's probably not a good idea. And so I'd, get up early and go fishing and get a good half day of fishing in, then go get ready for church and go to church. And I remember I was so excited to tell my bishop about the fish that I would catch that morning. And I'd even show him like pictures. Look at this fish I caught today, Bishop. And never once did Bishop say, Brady, you probably shouldn't be doing that. He just said, that's awesome, Brady. You're doing such a great job. And like, tell me more about, what type of bait were you using or where did you go fishing? Like, he met me where I was and he loved me for who I was and just helped me to be able to come along that process. And eventually I learned and I felt for my own self through the Spirit that, maybe I shouldn't go fishing in the morning. But it wasn't because Bishop, Ward was telling me that I shouldn't go fishing. It was just simply because he was a conduit to be able to allow the Spirit to be able to testify to me those changes and adjustments that I needed to make in order to be able to serve a mission. And that's probably the person that comes to my mind in such a unique and critical time in my life that I would share about.
I love that. Those people that meet us where we're at and love us and through our journey.
Yeah.
Is there a particular gospel principle that resonates deeply with you and about which you have a strong testimony that you'd like to share?
I love the law of consecration.
Tell me about
it. So well with this concept of being all in, everything that we have. We are temporary stewards. Our time, our talents, our resources, everything that we have that we've been entrusted with, we are temporary stewards of. And someday we will get to give an accounting as to what we did with those resources. And I'm very thankful for that. And I'm doing everything in my power to be able to make sure that when that day comes, when I get to give an accounting as to my time, my talents, and those resources, that I can return and report with a pure heart and say I did the very, very best that I could. And that's the principle that I love in the gospel, is that principle of consecration.
Thank you. Is there anything final that you would like to share with us, Brady? Concluding.
No, I would just say thank you to you for being willing to create this show and give an opportunity to be able to share on things that are so near and dear and be able to share about the gospel and about how that's impacted our lives. And so it's special to be able to see individuals like yourself that follow those promptings and those feelings inside to be able to create platforms to be able to allow us to do this. So great job.
Thank you for being willing to share your stories, your testimony, your faith with us today. I definitely felt something, and my faith and testimony is stronger because you shared today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's true.